Hello and welcome to the DFS Coach Talk podcast. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, and my name is Joe Sarvadi, affectionately known as Coach, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you guys and gals today. This is our inaugural show of DFS Coach Talk. Very, very excited to get started here. And for those of you who have followed our podcasting for the last year as part of Hoopball, I would like to welcome you now to DFS Coach Talk. We are going to be expanding the show. It is going to continue to be 7 days a week in front of the paywall, so it will be a free DFS show. We have grown to over 40,000 downloads per month coming into this transition now over from Hoopball to the DFS Coach Talk podcast. So the other exciting news is that my two running mates there that I've been working with for quite some time now podcasting, Mike Apotria and Andrew Hansen, are also going to be joining me here at DFS Coach Talk. So really, really super excited, for what we have in store. We're going to continue as far as the format that we used to do for those podcast listeners that are just jumping on here that had listened to us before. Very similar format in the sense that we're going to look at all the injuries for all the games. We're going to look at all of the breakdowns of the games as far as player news, coaching, tendencies, pace, defensive efficiency, all of the tools that we use to create lineups. So we'll be breaking that down, and we'll talk about mainly FanDuel and DraftKings pricing. We will have some content also for Fantasy Draft and Yahoo, so we don't want anybody to be left out. But we will spend however much time it takes each day to break down that slate, whether it's a 2-game slate or a 14-game slate. Obviously those shows, those pods end up going fairly long, but hopefully it will be something you can help start building your lineups for that evening. We will be putting out the podcast by 1 p.m. Eastern each day, so noon Central, and I guess that would be 10 o'clock on the West Coast. Somebody said before, I forgot the Mountain Time people, so I guess that'd be 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So, we will get that out, and then we're going to follow a 3-step process that I've used now for 5 years in the DFS world to have a consistent winning percentage in cash games of 60 to 70%, more toward the 70% side. So, it is a pretty good, foolproof, proven method of really doing well in DFS. And that 3-step approach is really listening to a podcast that's going to give you all the really important information and not just statistics and not something kicked out of a cruncher or optimizer. It's going to be something that, we're going to put a lot of eye test to it. What have we seen in games? What does it look like the tendencies are? I mean, they've given us huge advantages this year, seeing, there was one game I can remember very well that LeBron was playing, but he was coughing. You could tell he was sick. He wasn't feeling great. And the next day, he ended up getting a late scratch, and we had faded him just based on that eye test from the day before, which really gave us a huge edge on the field. And also, there was the time Drummond was playing when he had just started talking about trading him from the Pistons, and he was moping around the floor, and making stupid fouls. And so same type scenario, we faded him that next game. He didn't get scratched, but he did the same thing where he just was not effective at a high price tag and, again, a big edge. So we will always look at the statistical analysis. We'll look at the totals from Vegas to see, the pace up, pace down games. We'll look at, certainly the totals to see what the pricing is looking like for players that are in games that could blow out. If we have double-digit spreads, it puts a little, concern there when we're building our lineup. So we'll look at all of that stuff. And like I say, I love the defense real plus minus. I like looking at, how players do against certain positions and teams. And so our goal is to bring you that podcast every day, by around lunchtime, where you can catch that, if you have a late lunch, or if you're at your desk, or if you, on a ride home from work, whatever the case may be, by listening to that podcast, it should give you a pretty solid look at the slate as far as, who's scratched, who's questionable, what do the lines look like, et cetera, et cetera. And so we will do that, and we're going to do that 7 days a week. Obviously, when the games start becoming a little bit started earlier on Saturdays and Sundays, we'll move up the time that we put the podcast out to about 10 or 11 a.m. So we will adjust as that goes forward. The exciting part is we're not going to have an off NBA day for a long, long time now. So today is the last dark day for quite some time, because we will be covering NBA through the entire regular season. And then something unique that we do at DFS Coach Talk is we're also going to cover every single slate that's played, including the postseason, going into the NBA Summer League, which I'll be attending in Vegas, and then the Olympics, which are going to be an absolute blast. A shout out to a lot of our listeners across the world. We have a lot of folks from Australia in particular, and different locations like that listen in. So big shout out to those folks. But the Olympics will be great. It'll be fun to play. It's, you can really make some money. And then we also play preseason. We went absolutely bonkers this preseason. We were a really solid 13-5, including 3 of those being a better than 1% showing. So we took down some major stuff, and then started out the year the same way. I took down a $25 single entry tournament on FanDuel. I know Mike Apotria had a couple of strong hits. Andrew Hansen had a week there where he was on the leaderboard in multiple GPPs, including taking down, at the time, the Coach's Challenge that we were doing. So, a lot of success on this side of the ledger for sure, and we want to share that all with our entire audience. So that's sort of how that's going to work. The second, I was talking about the 3 steps, so that's the first big step, because that gives you that entire base to build around. The second step is following us on our website and following us on Twitter. That's going to be very key, because all of the news that goes down, everything that's happening throughout the day, hugely affects the slate. And, we're going to be doing this 24/7. So, if you follow us on Twitter, I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Our other 2 pros, Mike Apotria is at MikeApotria, and our man Andrew is at Language Olympic, just like it sounds, Language Olympic. And then you can also go to our website. It's DFSCoachTalk.com. We have a fantastic group there. There are 7 of us that are heading up this venture, and we're all, avid DFS players, and it's just a great group of guys. And they're going to be posting things in our Discord. Our Discord is like the coolest thing in the world. You can have separate chats. You can have the audio on, and different people speaking on different subjects. We also have automatic posts that pop in there from several things like Fantasy Labs and a lot of the sites that put out the information. And then all of our pros will be also posting any information that we receive on Twitter through a lot of the beat writers and a lot of the folks that we know that get some of that news sort of before it breaks. So that would be the second step. And then the third step is just committing to that final 30 minutes before lock. Generally, the lock time, as we know, is 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you're on the East Coast and you've got to block out that 6:30 to 7 o'clock time frame to just be completely focused on finalizing your lineups for the night and making sure that you're online with us, checking for any changes or late scratches. All the games that do start at that 7 o'clock Eastern time, the NBA has mandated this year that they have to turn in starting lineups 30 minutes prior. So at 6:30, if it happens to be 5 games at 7 o'clock that night, we're going to have 10 lineups. So that gives us a little bit more confidence if there's any questionable guys. And, it just allows you to make sure that the lineups that you're putting in there are going to be solid, because there's nothing worse than taking a 0 for a guy that's scratched. And, 2 of the 4 main sites do not have late swap, as you know. So if you are playing on FanDuel or DraftKings, FanDuel or Fantasy Draft, then you cannot late swap. So whatever locks at the first game, you're going to play out the rest of the way. Now, DraftKings and Yahoo do have late swap, and we'll talk a little bit more when we get the podcast going on that strategy. If you want to have a couple of pivots in there in case they do get scratched, that you can move to in that situation. So so that 30 minutes of getting that final lineup in, jumping in our Discord, jumping on Twitter, really that's the 3-step deal. And then it's important, and I always tell everybody, watch as many games as you can. Check out as much basketball as you can. The eye test is huge, but you will have myself and Andrew and Mike to lean on for that eye test. Between the 3 of us, I'm not sure if we miss catching like every game, or at least portions of every game. So we will be there for you to support that. So if you follow that 3 steps, then that's going to be a huge part of success in DFS. And we'll also be talking and posting things on our website a lot too, of a lot of strategies that can be used. Bankroll management is a huge piece. I mean, you can't come into this and go all in every night. Eventually you're going to bust. You can't play it that way. There's a pretty stringent rule that I follow, and it depends on the size of your bankroll. So, I'm not going to tell everybody that has a $30 bankroll to play 10%, and somebody that has a $3,000 bankroll that they're playing with to play 10%. I'll give a detailed list that I'll post on our website is how much the percentage of what you have as a bankroll that I recommend that you play each night, and what combination of cash versus GPP that you play, because that is very important too. And I know there are some of our listeners out there that only play cash games, and that's cool. We're going to cater to that. And there's some that only play GPP, and we're going to cater to that as well. I'm going to be on all 7 shows a week, and I am the cash pro here at DFS Coach Talk. Mike and Andrew are splitting 4 and 3 nights, so one of those guys will be on every show with me, and they're both GPP pros. So you'll get both looks at building your lineup, and they're very, very different. And, I know a lot of you already know that, but we'll get into some of the intricate parts of building those lineups, the strategies, the bankroll management of how you do that and build it. And, it's like anything else. You have to be steady with what you're doing, disciplined with what you're doing, and, not just go for broke and try to hit the lottery in one night and, then skip nights where, the lineups would have been good. A lot of it is about consistency and knowing which contests to enter, etc. So we'll get real deep into all of that on some of our chats in Discord. We'll also do some of that on each podcast, especially this first month with the new podcast here, just to get everybody on the same page, because I expect we'll have a ton of our listeners that followed us at Hoopball and probably a ton of new listeners. So we're going to want to combine some of the things that we've discussed in the past. And for those folks that, have heard some of those things at the beginning of the year, since we are just starting games tomorrow after the All-Star break, it's probably a good refresher for everybody to hear, a reminder of all of that stuff. Because even us, as pros, when we're having our side discussions, we'll at times remind each other, the focus and the discipline and everything that it takes to become very effective and become a winner in DFS sports. So that will be awesome. Also, might as well just briefly mention a couple of things for those of you who don't know who I am. Obviously, all of our listeners that we've had prior have heard quite a bit, but I'll go very, very briefly at my background and what's brought me to this point right now. I was a coach and teacher in high school for 14 years. I did that in Western PA, where I'm from. I had a very successful career. I was one of the youngest coaches to win a state championship in '93. Went to the finals in '96 against Lower Marion and Kobe Bryant. So that was really a coaching highlight of my career, getting to coach against Kobe in that '96 finals. I coached at Erie Cathedral Prep, and we played Lower Marion that year. We only lost by 6, and we held Kobe to his lowest points of the year at 17. But he was awesome, man. He could do anything, and he beat us that game really by distributing the ball, making smart decisions. We tried a triangle and 2 with 2 guys on him just to keep the ball completely out of his hands, and really weren't able to do that consistently because he would get it either on the break in transition, or he'd just go in flying and get a rebound and get it that way. So he was a special guy, and got a chance after that season. We had a couple of weeks where they had put an AAU all-star team together. It was before the high school kids could declare for the draft or for which college they were going to. And Kobe played on a team. I wasn't the head coach. I assisted. But we had a couple of practices, and then we had a game against an all-star team from Ohio, AAU team. So I got to see Kobe in the gym for a couple of days. And, I'm I mention him a lot here because I'm still just hurting over the news, as I know all of basketball fans in the sports world are. That was one of the most shocking things and saddest things I've ever heard. But, one thing I did learn for the short amount of time I got to at least be around Kobe was what they say about him. I witnessed firsthand. Never in my career as a coach, player, assistant, you name it, through the years of AAU, everything. I've never seen anybody within a shouting distance of the work ethic that he had. It just unbelievable. And, and I coached against and saw a lot of really great players back in the day, the Chris Webbers and guys like that were fantastic ball players. But nobody could hold a candle to Kobe. He was literally the first one in the gym and the last one out. It's not, those stories aren't lies. And, talking to him a little bit, he had never had like a Coca-Cola or Pepsi or anything like that on his lips whatsoever, only water and juice, and just on and on. I could go on for him, about him for a long time. And it's such a sad loss for our world not to have him around with his basketball knowledge and what he was going to endeavor. But anyway, that Mamba mentality always stuck with me because he hadn't gotten the nickname yet back then, but we certainly saw his actions that would lead, obviously, to all the championships and all-star games and everything else. So, I tell you all that just to let you know that I look at basketball specifically a lot different than a lot of the touts out in the world here that give lineups and such. I'm looking at coaching tendencies and player tendencies and, rotations and who's finishing games and, really the game behind the stats, and try to combine that with a good statistical analysis and feel really comfortable doing that. And I think that's really helped my success. And, I love sharing that information. I could talk basketball all day, every day. And it just, that's what makes this so much fun. But anyway, after coaching, I got into the world of business as an executive for quite some time, and did that for years, and then was able to connect with Donnie Nelson, who's a very close friend, the GM of the Mavericks, and we were the only AAU-sponsored team from an NBA team that was around. So my son played, and we had a group of, Dallas has an incredible pool of talent. I'm from Dallas, Texas now for the last 18 years. And we put together an all-star team. We represented the Mavericks. We got to practice at the G League facility in Frisco, Texas, where the Texas Legends play. And it was a great experience, and it just got all the coaching and exciting part of the game flowing for me again, and dove in, once my son got done with school and out of the AAU, then, I sort of took that attention and fire and jumped into DFS and podcasting. So that's sort of how I got to this point, and it's been a fun ride, and this is going to be a whole new venture that is, I know it's just going to be awesome because we have a great group of people doing it. Our only goal is to provide a really fun, enjoyable experience where we can give you the best chance to win. And, you'll hear us on our podcasts. We joke around a lot. We make crazy side bets, like Micah Patria, by the way, has to wear a chicken suit for one of our live shows. That's a carryover from one of the shows we've done at Hoopball, because we had a bet going that ended at the All-Star break. So you guys will get to see this in a couple of weeks here, our man Apatria in a chicken suit. So crazy stuff like that. You got to keep it light. You got to keep it fun. And we're certainly going to do that. And we have the right group of guys to do it. that's really the main thing I wanted to just let everybody know, sort of what the new show was about, that we were going to be free still 7 days a week in front of the paywall. We haven't missed a podcast slate this season, and we will be live tomorrow to tackle our very first one at DFS Coach Talk, and we're extremely excited. We will be, working through that on the podcasts and then in Discord and on the site later in the afternoon. That is really the main stuff I wanted to talk about. You can also look us up on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk, all one word. Again, our website is DFSCoachTalk.com. Definitely check us out on Twitter and check out the website. And you can expect this podcast to post, like I said, about 1 p.m. Eastern every day, 7 days a week, unless there's earlier games. And then we're going to try to be with you all the way up until lock and see if we can take some fun stuff down. So that is really it. That's what I wanted to share for today. Couldn't be more excited. Look forward to all of you getting stuff we have. Like I say, I believe myself with the 6 guys that I've been able to put together, these 6 guys are quality amongst quality. I mean, they're fantastic DFS players, but they're even better people. And, everything we do, we're going to really try to do with, the Mamba mentality. We want to win every contest we get in, but we're going to do it with grace and pride and honesty and just enjoy and take advantage of life and this opportunity we have with a hobby like this. If the Kobe scenario a couple weeks back did anything to a lot of us, it, sort of shook our heads to saying, hey, why am I not doing exactly what I feel like I should be doing? And this is one of those things I feel like I should be doing. So, I think I'm not the only one that was motivated and shook a little by Kobe and Gigi's passing. But, if it motivates for positive things that we can share and do, and then, it's really a cool thing. So, I believe that's it. We will, like I say, be posting. I did want to let you know that tomorrow you can definitely find us on YouTube for sure. Also should be able to find us on Stitcher and Spotify. But within the next 4 or 5 days, we're going to be everywhere podcasts can be heard. You'll be able to tune in on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, and YouTube. And we have a couple other ones in there as well. It takes a little bit of time, like with iTunes, for them to just validate a new podcast name, show. And so, to be safe, I'm just steering everybody for the next maybe through the weekend to YouTube, because it posts on there almost immediately. So I know people want to jump on there, whether it be on their ride home from work or whatever else they're doing. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a fun show tomorrow, and can't wait to get this second half started. And I really appreciate you all joining me for the first initial episode here of DFS Coach Talk. We will catch you again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA DFS.